Hello everyone, so starting with our first conflict of interest here, we're going to take a look at the Gaza Strip here first of all, and of course you probably heard about the hospital patients that have been leaving El Shifa out here, as well as other places that seemingly are not as considered as safe as we've talked about previously, and also some UN shelters that are not considered as safe as they probably were before, considering the strikes and clashes that have been going around there. So just in general, what I really want to talk about here as well is that we haven't seen actually a map update or any ground movement out here. So what I'm assuming the case for that is because as we know, of course, the clashes that are going on and perhaps Israeli forces trying to stay out of the mass throngs of people that have been moving throughout Gaza, as I'm sure you've probably seen the pictures that have and pictures and videos that have come out of this area of just people moving across Gaza, leaving these hospitals and these other areas and moving further towards the south. But even then, perhaps it's, considered a bit safer. But as we can see here, more shelling and airstrikes kind of just going on out here. As per the West Bank, we don't really see much of anything going on reported out here for today. And, the usual shellings and airstrikes, although there have been what appears to be at least deeper airstrikes into Lebanon out here, Gaza, Israel, I mean, targeting more of the Hezbollah militants and more of their infrastructure out here. Yeah, as we can see, of course, more strikes that are just going on further into Lebanon. So, just talking about that, of course, we're not expecting more to come out of this, but this is probably the most we're going to see in the future. Although I have been wrong in predicting some of these hostilities and in terms of their direction and propulsion, but just in general, I think this is most of really the kind of hostilities we're going to see in this northern area. So now taking a look at some of the footage that's coming on out here out of Gaza, this is a decent clip out here, which, as we talked about, Israel hasn't really released any footage in terms of the combat of dense area, but from what we can see here is that this is a pretty densely packed area of the Gaza Strip, that there are a lot of clips coming out of here as of recently. So what I'm starting to think is that now that considering the gravity of the situation, the situation in general as of recently, Israel is starting to be a bit more, perhaps not necessarily lenient, but they're starting to be a bit more open and trying to convey as of what's really going on in terms of the dense fighting that's going on out there. So there are a lot of clips that are coming out recently of door-to-door fighting, Israeli soldiers actually in buildings now, and in very very dense busy streets. Well, not busy streets, but dense streets. Close quarter combat is really what we're seeing a lot of out there now. Now, just checking in with some combat engagements. Of course, a lot of shelling going on, but 64 combat engagements, which is quite a lot. And, just talking about it just in general, I think we're probably going to see that this is going to be the norm for a little bit, with how hard Russia is trying to push and fix Ukrainian forces and just push in the Avdiivka area. And also, we've seen some Kherson shelling in general before, but, considering how hard the Ukrainians are possibly trying to push in this area, we are very likely going to see more of that in the coming days. All right, now pivoting over to Ukraine here really quick, we have a really, really big update going on out here. So let's take a look of what's going over here in Robotyne. So as we can see from yesterday and today, Ukrainian forces seemingly pushing a bit towards the west out here, perhaps closer towards Tokmak. But in general, this isn't a super huge update in terms of this footage out here. And also looking out over here towards the east, we can see that Russian forces seemingly have advanced a bit, and the front line has been clarified a bit just out here. And if we take a look over here, pivoting towards the Klishivka area, we can see that Russian forces have pushed a little bit further closer to this roadway in Klishivka, and as we talked about, it's of course south of Bakhmut area, and looking over here toward Vasily, we can see as well that Russian forces are seemingly closing in on this area in particular, and of course, in the Avdiivka direction, so they are getting closer and closer, seemingly towards their goal over here, and Staromayoskia, we can see just some pretty decent advancement into this field out here, closer towards this area And Yasinuvata, we can see over here that Russian forces are even advancing further, which is an area that we haven't seen, in terms of like the Avdiivka direction. We've seen most of the movement going on sort of in these two pincers, not really sort of pushing out towards the city itself. So just taking that into consideration, I think that we're going to see a lot more movement pushing into Avdiivka proper going on out here. So of course, these updates are just furthermore, uh, just more Avdiivka movement, and just clicking on them just to show you. Verbova out here, yeah, we already talked about that. It was right there. Shumi, which is a really interesting area that is another, we've talked about it a bit previously, that Russian forces had been pushed back seemingly the day prior, as we can see here, and as well as today, seemingly maybe a bit more clarification as to what's happened. So I don't know. It's just pretty interesting as to how it's been moving, and if it moves more, that's going to be a pretty big. Now looking over here, Bodanivka, we can see that the front line has been clarified because as we saw day prior, that was, or at least we saw an update, yeah, previously in North Bakhmut area where the front line has been clarified. So we're looking at perhaps a little bit more clarification as to what this actually really looks like. And now, last one, Novokalinova, we can see, of course, it's another Krasnohorivka area. Sorry, it's just, this whole area is such a big update in so many towns, that you hear maybe a couple times and then, they get, you don't really hear about them anymore. So, but this is, of course, big area that we're going to be talking about for quite a while. All right, now looking at some of the footage out here, this is what's reported to be a Bradley IFV out here in Avdiivka, and I just really wanted to show just what this looks like. Like, these buildings are completely blown out, and, just the area around here is just completely inhospitable, and from what I assume is that it's probably mined so heavily that it's going to take probably decades to make, these fields even usable, um, at least even safe for humans to walk over, you know. So just talking about this area, this is going to be, and with how contentious it is and how hard Russia is pushing for it. By the end of this battle, whatever comes of it, I'm assuming it's just going to be another Bakhmut. If I can predict what's going to happen here, Russia is going to grind its forces really, really hard to take this, city, town, whatever you want to call it. And I do think that eventually they are probably going to succeed in taking this town, but at super high losses. And what we're probably going to see are a lot of blown out buildings and flags being placed on piles of rubble. Alright, now of course, talking about Myanmar, we can see that of course anti-junta forces are further pushing even more what is apparently a checkpoint. And what I wanted to talk about here is that, a lot of the footage is starkly contrasted to the footage that we have been seeing for a good few like years actually of anti-junta forces, most of the combat maybe ambushing just a police station or just drive-by shootings, maybe a drone drop here or two, maybe, and just fighting in very dense forested area, which albeit this is some pretty forested area, but a lot of the other footage we've seen in actually towns and cities. So just in terms of that, there's the footage has changed drastically in terms of the Myanmar conflict. So, just giving a bit of a ground update as well. As we can see, they've taken another checkpoint in the Kaya state. So the Karenni Nationalities Defense Forces are obviously operating in a way that seems to be favoring them out here. So, of course, expect more updates coming out of there. All right, other than that, there really wasn't anything else I had to talk about considering the maps, especially in Israel, Gaza, weren't really updated that much. So that's all I really had to talk about today. And of course, if you have any questions or, of course, a comment, leave it below. And other than that, thanks for watching.